Folks, just recently, Joe Biden put out a statement, and he says that for those of you who claim that the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of the patriots, he goes, I want you to think again, and I'm paraphrasing him. He says, you better have an F-15 with Hellfire missiles if you think you can resist the government. Oh, what a cute little phrase by another Democrat for the people. I mean, first you get Representative Swalwell talking about nuking American citizens with strategic thermonuclear weapons, and now you've got a presidential candidate of the United States saying that he'd be willing to take us on with jets and Hellfire missiles. The very weaponry which our money provided them. So, Joe, what you're saying is that the Second Amendment doesn't go far enough. In other words, we need more arms under the Second Amendment, not just semi-automatic rifles. So if semi-automatic rifles aren't enough to be able to resist a tyrannical government, which is exactly what you said, because you said you guys have F-15s and Hellfires. So if that's the case, then don't we need more arms? Our founders were very clear in the Second Amendment. They wanted an armed citizenry as equally, if not more so armed than the federal government. This is very clear. Alexander Hamilton elaborates this clearly in the Federalist Papers. James Madison in Federalist number 46 also elaborates that he wanted the firepower in the hands of the citizenry. So if you're arguing, Joe, that semi-automatic rifles aren't enough firepower to beat you, then what we need to do is we need to expand the Second Amendment rather than to continue to chip away at it and make it less and less and less. You're self-defeating your argument because you're such a moron with such a lack of constitutional knowledge that it's insulting that you're even a presidential candidate. And by the way, I disagree with you. I think the American people armed only with semi-automatic rifles would put up a pretty hellacious fight. That's the language of these tyrants. That's the language of the modern socialists. And modern socialists and past socialists, they're all the same. If you don't do what they want you to do, they're going to use the force of government to crush you. They're going to use the force of government to crush you with firepower. That is the doctrine of socialism, and that's why their so-called revolutions have been violent. I guess I'm doing this video because he was bothered by the quote. He was bothered by Thomas Jefferson saying that the people would show resistance to the government every now and then. And I guess that's the reason the Second Amendment was written, wasn't it? Was that we would be able to fight back against a tyrannical government. And yet here we have a presidential candidate talking about that, oh, your guns would be useless against trying to resist us. Did he ever ask why people would be willing to do that? I'm sure it has nothing to do with violation of rights or the condescending, smug attitude that they've demonstrated the last several decades. He also has no problem with people that protect him using those very weapons he said wouldn't help. So he definitely doesn't have a problem with those guns. He definitely doesn't have a problem with utilizing those guns for personal protection. He's fine with his personal protection detail having those guns. But you, me, anybody else in this country, oh no, you don't need those. Did he ever think about how he was going to get people to comply? Did he ever think, like, you know, people like me, if they're saying you're going to have to give up your guns, like, do you think I'm going to walk into the police station and like just hand them all the firearms that I've taken care of and used and practiced with? There's going to be massive resistance. There's going to be massive disregard for their idiot little dictate. The founding fathers were on the right side of history. The Second Amendment is exactly written for people like him. It is written for people like Joe Biden. It was written for people like Bernie Sanders. This is Reid Henrichs with Valor Ridge reminding you the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.